And one thing I always wanted from a practitioner was like an acceptance of the spiritual side, because I know a lot of people will go to psychologists or speech pathologists and feel like you're not allowed to talk about those things.
Hi, I'm Ashleigh, and welcome to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. This is a place for the crystal curious, arcane-minded, and everything in the in-between. In this podcast, we will jump down the rabbit hole into the metaphysical, esoteric, occult, and spiritual realms. Nothing is off limits. I'm a mom, wife, an orthopedic physician assistant by day, and a seeker of all things spooky and kooky by night. I've spent my entire career in the medical field, but have always felt like there is more out there, and this is where we will explore together. We will have conversations with crystal healers, rock hounds, artists, musicians, spiritual coaches, magic makers, and anything woo-woo that strikes our fancy. Let's take our spiritual journey to the next level. So grab a crystal, pour a cup of tea. It's time to feel the Big Crystal Energy. Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy, the podcast where we stir the cauldron of the mystical and the mundane. Today, we're getting a little soapy. I'm Ashleigh. I'm the host. Today, I'm joined by the wildly magical Sarah, the creator behind Green Moon Witchery. She's an herbalist, gardener, performer, former professor, and self-proclaimed mud and herb witch living in Portland, Oregon. She makes handmade soap that doesn't just cleanse, it conjures. Each bar is infused with plant magic and corresponds to a tarot card, blending intuition, intention, and earthy enchantment. In this conversation, we will talk about her 20-plus year journey with herbs, her academic background in speech language pathology and cognitive neurolinguistics, and how she seamlessly weaves science, spirit, and spellwork together. We will also dive into her deep love of the herbal tarot and how she channels its archetypes into beautiful, nourishing soap. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to live a life where magic is infused into the everyday, this is the episode for you. Welcome, Sarah.
That was such a nice intro. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. This is so fun. I don't even really know how I came across you and your work, but I did. And when I discovered your blend of soaps and tarot, and it was like, oh, these are all cool things that I love, I immediately ordered some products from you. And of course, I love them right away. And I use your soap every day because it's just, not only does it smell delicious, it's just really good soap. And I love watching your Instagram. I love watching how you make it. It's so interesting. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so satisfying, especially when you are cutting the soap. It's so satisfying. So yes, thank you so much for joining me. It's so fun having you here on Big Crystal Energy.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad you like the soap, and I have a little following right now, so I'm so glad you found your way to my page.
Well, I don't have a huge following either, but we have to start somewhere, That's the thing. We just have to keep putting ourselves out there. We just keep doing what we love, and eventually, I think eventually the masses will find us.
It'll happen.
Yeah, one of these days. So can you tell us about your first connection to plants, or what you, or like what called you into herbalism?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It was a long time ago. I was 20, I think. I was, I was a fresh adult. And this was a time before social media, remember, I'm old, right? So this was pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram, pre all that. So I think I can't remember the order. This is what I was trying to remember. I think I found witchcraft first and then found herbs. My dad was a gardener, so I was sort of raised around plants, and he always called working outside his church. And so I always resonated with that sort of spiritual connection to nature. We had I'm from Houston originally, and we had 9 beautiful live oak trees on our little urban lot. And I always feel like they were part of what raised me too. So I always had this connection. I think when I found witchcraft is because I went to school in Berkeley for a year,
Yes.
Which I don't know how you walk away from Berkeley without being a witch.
I don't think you can.
And then I found a Witchcraft 101 site on GeoCities. I don't know if you remember GeoCities website. It was totally a GeoCities Witchcraft 101 site that I found first. And then I just sort of found my way and found my way to herbs around the same time. Got my hands on like every herbalism book I could, was growing plants in my dorm room and on windowsills, and have carried that with me over the years. When I had babies, when I was in grad school, when I had my first two babies, and we were living in Florida at that point, and started using remedies more at that point. And that's when I learned to make soap about like 16, 17 years ago.
Wow.
As like one way to incorporate herbs more into my daily life. Because soap's something like salves are nice, but like I would make a tin of salve and like it would last me like a year because we would use it occasionally. And like I had tea and stuff all the time, but I wanted ways that were like more constant and not just eating, just skincare and all that was always kind of what drew me to like, using herbs. And soap was actually a really nice way to do that, where I get to use them multiple times a day.
Of course, my mom's a big gardener too, and I just never inherited any of that. And she's always, when she comes to my house, she's always shocked at how I've managed to kill these plants that she says no one could kill. And I'm like, well, you leave them with me for a little while and you know what? It probably will happen. I just never got that. I don't know. And I don't know if it's just because it's not something that I feel like I gravitate toward, or if I really do have a black thumb, or if it's just because my life is so busy and it's very hard for me to, add that other layer into my world. But I mean, I have two plants that she got me. They're on my front porch still. Manzanilla flowers or something. And I've managed to keep those alive for about 3 years. So that I feel like that's a big win. But I don't know, anybody that can work with plants and herbs and stuff, I think is, I always am like, wow, that's so fascinating.
Well, I've killed my fair share of plants also. So it's not all living plants over here all the time.
It's trial and error.
My sad collection of like my little like rehabilitation for plants facility with the ones that I have neglected or not done the right thing for. A bit of a chaos gardener when it comes to actual planting. If it can survive the chaos, it gets to stay.
That's right. I mean, when you've got kids, when you've got, all these things going on, I mean, I feel like I'm just like chaos in a person, but I don't always necessarily want to be that way, but that's just the way that life is. So, do you feel like your relationship with your plants and your herbs has really evolved over the years?
For sure. Yeah. Like, especially at first it was, I did a lot of book learning at first. I was a student. I mean, I have a PhD. Like I'm like academics, like you sort of get drawn into that. And my relationship with herbs at first was very much book driven, like almost like a collection, right? Like how many books can I collect? How many different herbs can I learn about? Can I, I knew a lot more than I was using. If that makes sense, It
does make sense.
Just like have a whole inventory in my brain. But so my relationship at first was very intellectual versus like personal or spiritual even. Because that's kind of how I knew how to approach the world at that point, was very much book driven, or, what facts can I learn about this? And I still operate that way a lot in my life. I just like want to know the things. But herbs have really been a good teacher for me to also let them teach me directly, because I wanted to learn about them because I wanted to use them and incorporate them more into my life and feel more connected to things around me. And that part took more time as it should.
Yeah,
So
I feel that totally.
that.
I mean, I feel like that too, because I'm a crystal girly and I have like every crystal book there is. And I love that. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm getting into this because I want to harness the energy of that. I don't want to just learn about it on an academic level. I want to actually incorporate them into my world. And sometimes as someone that's kind of like you, like I have had a very academic life. I've worked in medicine for all of my career. It's easy to just get into that rhythm of where you just are collecting so much knowledge, but then you have to put it to work. So it's always just trying to figure out how to make that work. And that's been part of the reason why even I wanted to create my podcast, because it's like, well, I can just let all these books sit here and collect dust or read them, but I want to start incorporating all this stuff. So this has been like a really good way for me to just put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you working in academia? Like, how did that kind of path go where you were working in academia and now I would say this path feels probably very different than what you had originally been doing.
It does. I think, I was in academia forever. I sort of never stopped being a student is how it felt. Remember looking forward to graduation and then looking up 3 years later and being like, wait, I didn't leave when I graduated. I feel like I maybe missed a step. So yeah, I taught at Portland State for about a decade. I had a lab. I was studying brain injury recovery. It's my background in speech pathology. My PhD is in speech pathology and neurolinguistics. So I was studying like what happens to cognition after brain injury and how that affects language, that sort of thing. And I did that for 10 years. And I actually loved many aspects of it. I love my students. I enjoyed the research, like 70% of the time. And I felt very compartmentalized, I think is how that felt. So I guess actually my mentor, I found out later, I realized later, she could draw birth charts. She was drawing astrological birth charts, and we never talked about it. Mm-hmm. One time she offered to draw me a birth chart, and I was so compartmentalized. I was like, no, that doesn't belong here. And I still in some regards feel very like compartmentalized. And part of Green Moon Witchery has been me trying to not compartmentalize because it's all me. And I never felt like I wasn't me in academia. But academia is kind of a toxic place. So that's eventually what really drove me to leave. I wasn't in a very good situation where I was dealing with some bullying and that sort of thing. And it wasn't great. And academia is an entrenched system, just like many of our systems of power are. Healthcare was my backup plan originally. I was like, I don't know if I can jump from one system that's problematic to another. As I'm sure you are very well aware.
Mm-hmm.
The speech pathologists were one of the lowest paid allied health professionals.
I imagine they are.
And I was like, not a sniff, not today. Nope.
No.
And I loved those settings. That's why I became a speech pathologist, but I couldn't do it. I'm an industry researcher now because I'm the main earner for my household, and Green Moon Witchery is a side hustle. I'm hoping to make it a main hustle at some point. Mm-hmm. But it just takes time. I forget where I'm rambling a little bit. Your original question was like, so it's like part of this is me integrating parts of myself. And I didn't feel like I could do that in academia. Somehow people found me though. Students would know I was a witch, and I must have tells that I just don't know. I have tattoos, but it's not like they're on show all the time.
Well, a lot of people have tattoos. Are they witchy tattoos?
I mean, this one's newer, but this one is.
Yes.
Sure. But it's this was covered when I was teaching.
Yeah.
Somehow students would be like, I kind of like witchy stuff too. Like, how do you know I am? Do I have
because you send off the vibe.
Yeah.
You have the vibe, And
it's a couple of my, it's like,
it comes out of you.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking back to conversations what did I say? Is there something I do that I just don't know I do? So that was, I always liked that because I was sort of oh yeah, I am. Is this a secret? Are we allowed to talk about this in an academic setting?
I know, it's so silly though, right?
Yeah, it is. It is silly. And later it felt less uncomfortable after I got more used to it. One of my colleagues is also witchy, pagan. One of the first times I met them, they were wearing a pentacle necklace, and I was like, oh, we have to talk.
Yes.
So it was nice to find people even in a scientific setting. And one question I get a lot is, how can you be a scientist and a witch? And I have never felt even though I felt discomfort, it was more about the culture, not about the actual opposition of those things. I don't feel like they're oppositional. I don't
either.
I kind of became a scientist and a witch for almost the same reasons, because I'm drawn to understanding the world around me and feeling connected to it. And
I agree. I mean, I think that's what it is. For me, it's very much the same thing. I think it all makes sense very well. It all seems like it really blends together. For me, having a spiritual path that goes more in this direction, I think I can reconcile that with a sciencey background more than I can reconcile if I was following a traditional Christian path. To me, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Sure.
But I mean, that's me. Unfortunately, there's a lot of negative stigma that comes along with this path that is mostly infused with from Hollywood and, you know, social media, and people think things that aren't even true about this kind of path. But to me, it all makes sense. Like, just being more of it is just about being connected with the earth and nature and just everything that's around us rather than anything. And that in itself is science.
Yeah. Seeing truth, I think, is part of it. I feel like that's the flavor of one of the things you're saying. And I agree with for sure. And social media, I think that it's like a different kind of stigma now, because it became popular, I don't know, a few years back, like trendy almost. And it was nice to feel like it's more accepted, but at the same time, it became kind of co-opted. I think it's sort of a process. It's not like I have answers to those things either. I definitely feel like it makes it difficult to just kind of be out there. It feels uncomfortable.
It does. And it's like, are you into it because it's like the trendy thing of the moment, or are you into this because this is actually something that you feel within you? You know, because you see a lot of these people that are making content around this stuff, and it's like, is this stuff you actually follow, or is this something that it just has a really cool aesthetic to it, so it's fun to make content around it? Because yeah, it is cool. I love all my stuff.
It's pretty.
It is pretty, and it's sparkly or whatever, and there's candles and incense and all the things, but is it like, do you know why you're connecting to those things, or is it just for show? So now let's get into a little bit about the tarot. So you had your first if I can talk, I'm still brain dead after the weekend. You had your first tarot deck. It was called Herbal Tarot. Is that right?
Yeah. Grab it.
Okay. Yeah. I want to see it.
Like right behind me. I'm a mess. Here we go. Yeah. I don't know. This is a pretty popular deck. This one's like old. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Well,
you've had it for a while. It's been loved.
Yeah. It's just all herbal based. And I think I can't remember if I was gifted this before or after I got into witchcraft, but I've had it for almost the same amount of time. And for a long time, it was the only deck I had. And I've never really felt drawn to collect more, although more recently I was making the soap. I was like, I should get just like a classic Rider-Waite deck. The Herbal Tarot is based on the Rider-Waite system, or the symbolism in the Rider-Waite. But I didn't have just the classic Rider-Waite deck. So I got that more recently. So yeah, this is my favorite deck. It's kind of a gentle tarot, gentle, different decks I feel like have personalities.
Sure, of course.
And this one feels gentle, which is often what I need when I get advice for myself.
We don't always just want to be slapped in the face. Sometimes we need that.
I mean, it still does. It still does occasionally, but
yes.
like a gentle slap.
Yes. So you got the deck, and then you really at that point, did you really dive into tarot, or is it a process that's been something that you've evolved with over the years?
When I first got it, I was definitely reading all the time, pulling cards all the time. And I tried to follow those little like how-tos where you like pull a card every day and all of that. I'm not very good at that sort of thing.
No, I'm not either.
At being very systematic. I will for a while, and then I won't, and I'll drop it. So I would go sometimes weeks or months at first, not pulling at all. I always made a point to pull on like Halloween, because it always just felt right on those days. And I would go for a long time and think, it doesn't feel really important to me to do. And then I would pull some cards, and it would be like a slap in the face, a gentle slap, and be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, tarot is pretty cool.
Yes.
Over many years. So it was sort of a evolving relationship over many years. And then when I was leaving academia, which is like a huge shift, I quit this like career, I had been invested in for 15, 20 years. And that's when I really started, I guess, that's it. And that's another thing, actually. Let me go back a second. One thing that I didn't do, I was following advice to like pull cards and stuff, but I also had no money. So I wasn't buying a lot of books on tarot. I was using my like little white book with it. And I felt really constrained by that for a long time. That's part of why I didn't want to keep picking it up, because it's just, there's only so much depth when the card can be interpreted in,
Yes.
this much text on a little tiny book. And then a couple years ago, when I left academia, I came across some more tarot books that I felt were more, I guess, just they felt better. I don't know how to describe it. They kind of, I was drawn to these different tarot books. I'm trying to remember what the first one was I picked up. I'll have to like ping it to you sometime, or message you sometime, because I can't think of it. But I started really expanding how I was interpreting the cards. And not feeling like I had to rely on other people's interpretation so much. And realizing like I have like 20 years where I've been doing this. I actually do understand a lot more in these that doesn't match the little white book, and like, that's okay. And giving myself permission to explore it a little bit more. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, I think that's really true, because even with tarot, I mean, there's so many decks. And I have quite a few different decks, but there's only a few that I like to work with, because I feel like when I look at the card, I can really pull something from it. Some decks are just really kind of cool to have as just a novelty, but I look at the cards and I don't really connect with them. But there's other ones where I'm like, oh yeah, I see the card and it makes sense to me. I don't need to have the book. I don't need to rely on interpretation, because I just feel it when I see the card.
Right.
And that's with any kind of text. I mean, if you connect with the message and the author, then, most likely you'll understand what they're trying to present to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that you post these tarot spreads on your Instagram. Those are a lot of fun.
Thanks. Yeah, I like putting those together. When I first decided to kind of dive more into Green Moon Witchery, the first thing I did was actually want to approach it like I would approach a cog rehab client, which was like how are we gonna, a lot of what I would do in cog rehab would be like, let's set a goal that you want to meet, and here's all these different things that we can do to make that happen. Part of that is like setting a goal that makes sense, and all the things connected to that. And one thing I always wanted from a practitioner was like an acceptance of the spiritual side, because I know a lot of people will go to psychologists or speech pathologists and feel like you're not allowed to talk about those things. And I had decided against going into private practice, although that's something I've thought about. But like licensure laws actually make that really hard. If I wanted to do that remote, like on Zoom, you'd have to be licensed in the state where your client is. And so I was like, well, what if I just approach this like a witch, as opposed to approach it like a clinician? I can still bring all the things I know about that. And so I started making tarot spreads for that purpose, to sort of like think what I would do with somebody that needed cog support, somebody with ADHD or autism or brain injury history, all those things that sometimes just need a little help. And I started exploring the archetypes of the tarot in relation to my scientific understanding of executive functioning, and they map really well, which should surprise me not at all, because like the point of tarot in a lot of ways is to tell you how to like do the thing you want to do, which is exactly what executive function is for. But I was still sort of surprised at how well it mapped. And since then I've sort of been playing with that and having fun making spreads. It's just fun to make tarot spreads.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating how helpful tarot can be in so many different kinds of settings. I mean, you can really use it for a lot of different things. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the people outside of this type of community think it's like a fortune telling and all this stuff, but it's so helpful for us to just do deep dives on ourselves and make a game plan and all these things that, even when I first started getting into tarot, I didn't realize how many different ways I could use it. And it's just been so helpful in day-to-day life. It's been helpful with relationships and interpersonal skills and so many different things. And it's also fun though to just have fun with it and, just have fun spreads too. It doesn't have to be so serious all the time. Mm-hmm. And I love that side of it as well.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's fun to ask it serious questions. And also like silly questions. I was thinking about the fortune telling aspect of it. A lot of what I write when I write a spread feels sort of like spicy psychology, as they say, Mm-hmm. But when I pull cards, it doesn't feel like just that. Like it feels bigger. And I know, historically cartomancy's been around a very long time. Mm-hmm. And I know it was used for, communing with the spirits or, whatever you want to call it for a very long time too. So I think about that a lot, like how to balance mm-hmm. that. So I don't feel qualified to like be a minister or like a priestess as people say, but I like where, how to navigate that is something I think about. Yeah.
So how did you, what ended up drawing you to soap making?
Yeah. So so going back to talking about herbs, that's originally what drew me to it. And when we were living in Florida, I had my now 16, almost 17-year-old when we were living there while I was doing my PhD. And my neighbor, we lived on this sandy road in the swamp, like literally down the street from this place called La Chua Trail, where there's like hundreds of alligators, just like all the time. You can hear them at night.
Oh my gosh. Cool. What do you mean you can hear them at night?
They I can't do the sound. Actually, my 16-year-old can, but it's like, like this
oh, really?
Sound. You can like hear them. Like, it's like, it's.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. I didn't know they made noises. I guess I just never really thought about it.
They're noisy. Actually, Florida's very loud.
Where in Florida?
Loud.
Like where?
It's just Gainesville. I went to University of Florida, so I was in Gainesville there, mm-hmm. and there's swamps everywhere, and there's this big prairie with buffalo and wild horses. It's like all forested, and then plains and horses and buffalo and alligators. There was this little old lady. She had to be she was like. She had a hunch on her upper back, like lordosis, and she had a stick and was a volunteer at this trail, and she would like yell at the alligators to stay off the trail so they could stay open. And they would be like, "Oh crap, Gale's coming. We got to go."
Yeah, Gale.
They would run away. But yeah, I lived right across the street from this woman that made soap and made her own makeup for her, like an Etsy shop. And she knew I was into herbs, and we, became very close while we lived there. Just, she had kids, and she was a veteran mother. And so she taught me a lot about mothering and parenting. And she came over one day and taught me how to make soap. And it took forever because I had no tools, and it was only olive oil, like from the grocery store. And I'd stir it for like hours. Felt like my arm was going to fall off. But then I had soap, and I was like totally hooked. And so we talked a lot about, how to use herbs in soap. And so I just started playing with it and kind of never looked back. I've been making it ever since.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it looks like quite the process.
It can be. You can have all sorts of steps. It's really not too bad. People get very scared of the lye step because that part is like, it's a dangerous chemical. You gotta be careful.
Sure.
But it's really not too bad. I think it's a very accessible way to learn about herbs for folks that are like shy of using things that aren't like from Walgreens, because I have found that even when like I gift things, like people are like, "Thanks for the salve. I'm never going to use that." Or tea, like I drink coffee, but they'll use soap. There's also people that are weird about bars of soap, but that's a whole other discussion.
Really interesting.
But yeah, I think it just feels like harmless, I guess, to folks. And so people that otherwise might be like shy of trying a salve on a cut or something are totally open to a bar of soap. Yeah. So, but the process of making it isn't really that bad. There's steps, but it's not more complicated than like a knitting project. You have oils, you pour the lye in the water, you let it do its thing. Heat up the oils, and when they're about the same temperature, you mix the two. And then it kind of becomes a puddingy consistency. You pour it in a mold and then you wait, and then it's soap. And you can get fancy, like over time. You can start with basic. Like the first soap I made was literally just olive oil and lye water. These days I use a lot more nice oils. And so I've sort of over time learned which oils I like in soap and which ones I don't. That, oils all have different properties, and that just takes time to like learn about. But it's fun.
So how do you come up with the creations for your soaps? Like, how do you know what herbs to use and how to combine all of the different things?
Yeah, having the tarot series has been really nice because it gave me like a container to decide different designs. In the past, before I was doing like a series for that purpose, I would want a soap to do something specific. Like I need one that's scrubbier, so let's try poppy seeds. Or I need one, like one of my family members had eczema, and so she wanted something that was extra soothing. And so no essential oils in that one. I steeped the water in oats because I know oats are, help soothe irritated skin, but I didn't want it scrubby. So then I removed the oats at the last step. And so it's usually a specific purpose I have in mind, and where I would think through an herbal remedy, and instead think about it in terms of soap. But like calendula, like things that you would put in a salve to heal stressed out skin, I can also use in soap. And it doesn't stay on your skin in the same way a salve does, because obviously you're washing it off. But you do wash your hands a lot. So I've looked into the science behind this, and there's the evidence is like not there, as a lot of herbal remedies aren't. But there's also a huge following of people that get results from calendula soap. So like it is doing something. So I'm not sure of the science behind it. That's always something that stops me when I think about this stuff. But I usually have like a remedy in mind when I'm making a bar of soap. And with the tarot series, I was thinking more, what does this, like if this card were an herb, what would it be? And obviously on the herbal tarot, some of the herbs are like there, like, like the suspended person has kelp. But I don't know that I had kelp to put in the soap. So I used spirulina for that one.
Oh yeah. Very similar. I mean, color wise.
Like it works.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I decided these things. And for the oils and things, I think about what they do. Like coconut oil is actually a drying oil. Like I can't actually use coconut oil on my skin because it dries my skin out.
Interesting.
But cocoa butter, I love cocoa butter.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite thing. So I'll find ways to incorporate cocoa butter, or like for folks with dandruff, I'll add neem oil, that sort of thing.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So you've been making soap for a long time. How did you decide to combine your love of tarot and the soap? Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I have something you need to hear. Have you been feeling a shift, a pull towards something more? Whether you're manifesting new opportunities, confidence, or a major glow up, the universe is listening, and I've got just the thing. In a crystal clarity call, I'll intuitively select 3 crystals to support your manifestations, pull a tarot or oracle card for deeper guidance, and craft custom journal prompts to help you take action. It's more than a reading, it's an energetic roadmap. So if you're ready to align with your highest self, DM me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash for details and pricing. Let's bring your magic to life.
That just like came to me one day. I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner, honestly.
Yeah.
I think the thing with soap, if you're not selling it and you make it, you have a lot of soap.
Sure.
Really fast. So I was like, okay. And so I wasn't making it like all the time, because, then I would have like 5,000 bars of soap. I was gifting it as often as I could. And I have kids that are messy, so we go through it, but, I wasn't making it often enough to try like a ton of new recipes. And then when I started Green Moon Witchery, and I was like, oh, I need like an inventory to have enough soap to sell. And then it was like the recipes I had weren't enough. And I was trying to think of like ways to incorporate the witchcraft and not just the herbs. Cause you can have like herbs and witchcraft aren't the same thing. Like herbalism and witchcraft isn't the same, right? although they can, and they overlap. So I was thinking of ways to like, where's that overlap where I feel good about it? And then I was like, oh my God, tarot, obviously. Like, why haven't I done that before? And nothing prompted it besides me just trying to think through like how to do that. And yeah. And so I started this, and it's been really fun.
You know what? Hang on. I'm going to pause this really quick.
Sure.
Because I have a Costco delivery that's at my front door.
Go get it.
My kids' bunk beds. And of course, they're supposed to come at 3, and they're here now. So I'll be right back.
Don't worry. Go take care of it.
It'll just be one moment.
Okay.
Okay. So are you able to share a couple examples of the tarot, like how the soap relates to the tarot? Is it mostly because of the type of materials that are in the tarot, or how does that process work for you?
Yeah, I have this one on top, and since I'm posting about it this week, it's a good example.
Okay.
The suspended person it's not a card I was super comfortable with before. One nice thing about this process has actually been really deepening my understanding of the cards. Like I felt like I was pretty good before, but now when I think about applying it in this way, it's like this whole different perspective, which is really nice. So it's not just about the herb itself. Like it's sort of like, what is the general sense or the vibe I want to get from it? And with soap, there's, the smell, the color, what it does for your skin. And like what soap is like part of that. Like you're using it all the time. So if I wanted to like wash my hands and like, I guess one way people learn about the tarot is to like set a card out. So you just like see it all the time, kind of like putting it on your altar. So you just see it regularly. And that's kind of at its core what I was thinking soap would be for in one way, where you're just like thinking about the suspended person or the hangman every time you wash your hands or every time you taking a bath. Or I know some folks that are using my soap are also like treating a hand washing like a spell, right? Where like I'm having to be patient right now, and I'm actually I have no patience. I'm not a patient person. And so this is part of this card is about that. And so when you wash your hands, you're like, it's like a spell on yourself. Like, we will be patient today. We will chill. We will be okay with waiting. And so like thinking through all of that and how would I turn that into this sensory experience that soap is? And Spirulina suggested itself because of the kelp. And to me, this card, the herbal tarot, I like more than the Rider Waite symbolism, because the wateriness of it, like you're kind of like underwater can be nice, but not if you're like stuck there. But watery can also be relaxation. And so I for that bar, let me grab a bar of soap. This one's faded since the pictures I took too. But like for this one, it smells so good actually. I was thinking like watery relaxation. And so sort of like the hanging down of kelp. And then the smell itself, I was thinking like what would be relaxing, and too much lavender's not, I don't know. It's just sort of, I'm not being very articulate about this, but, the mix of essential oils, I was going for like a relaxing, watery scent. And so that's how I picked those. But I didn't want it to be oppressive. Like lavender by itself can be kind of oppressive, so I added orange and lemon to give it this brightness, to try to make waiting easier. Because that's what I felt like the message of the card is you gotta wait. And that might suck, but you still gotta do it.
Right.
And so how can you make that easier? And that's kind of what I was going for.
I love that. It's so cool because it's like a really beautiful creative process too.
It's a lot of fun. It was a really nice, like design experience. And the fun thing is like now I actually finished the world soaps. I finished the major arcana just like 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And I actually put off the very last card because I didn't want to be done. So I could have been done in like January, but I put off designing the world soap for like weeks because I realized I didn't want to stop doing that. But I realized I could like redesign some of the ones I'd already done now that I've gone through this, and add things, change some color, make the scent stronger or weaker. But it won't be the same as doing it the first time.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think it's nice too because, as as moms, as working moms, as people that are in the professional setting, it's so important to have a creative outlet, because I know for me, it has made me just a better person all around to have just like a way to express myself that's not just in those particular roles. And it accesses a different part of your brain. It gives you something to connect to. I think, probably for you, it's kind of not only just a creative outlet, but then also a spiritual outlet. And it's a really beautiful combination of all of those things.
It is nice to have a creative outlet for sure. For all those reasons.
Yeah. I know for years, I just was so busy with work and the kids and everything. I didn't even allow myself to have any kind of creative outlet. And I could just feel myself feeling like, well, my life is so good. And why don't I feel fulfilled? And I think it was just, a lot of it was because I was lacking that. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was who I was, but it was really lacking that creativity. And so, I think one of the big things that I like to do with my podcast here is to highlight people that are kind of like me. You have these traditional roles that you play with work and your families, but then you also have these really cool outlets to, have your creativity, have your magical practice, have your spiritual practice, and how you can combine all of it. And it's, everybody has their little niches that they get into. And I think that's what's so fascinating.
Yeah. There's so many different ways to do it. It is a nice outlet. It can feel like a chore if it's not connected to that sort of creativity, like soap is very utilitarian. Like we might just need a batch of soap. And then of course I don't want to make it because I'm wired. Or like if I was just making it, making these giant batches to sell in like a large scale way for wholesale, it might I don't want it to feel like a chore. And so I think like having the tarot series, when you start a business, or even a micro business like mine, like they say, focus on like a couple products. That's like the advice everybody gives you. And I get why, it's smart, but I don't think I could do that and also keep doing it.
Sure. So what do you hope that people feel or experience when they use your soap?
I think I want them to have a little moment when they're washing their hands, or a big moment if they're taking like a nice bath for themselves. But like a little moment, you have, at least 20 seconds when you're washing your hands, to notice all of the sensations that go with using a homemade bar of soap. Even a very plain, nothing in it bar of homemade soap just feels so much better on your skin. Just it has the glycerin is still in it, unlike store-bought soap. So I want it to feel good on your skin. I want it to be beautiful. So it gives you a moment of beauty amidst, a very busy life potentially. And then the scent and I want it to just be like a sensory moment, just interspersed throughout your day where you're not having to stop what you normally do to do it. Doesn't take anything extra. It's there to use, and it's there to use. It's not there to like be pretty. It's there to use and feel like it gives you a moment of beauty and a pause.
I love that, especially because I think that sometimes when, especially I know from over the years, because I just love bars of soap. And so I'll go to these fairs and I'll go get them. And then it's like, oh, well, it's too pretty to use. But then what's the point of having it?
Soap.
Right. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Is it going to just sit there on your shelf and you're just going to look at it? The whole purpose of it was to use it. So just use it. And that's what I love. I loved when I got your soaps. They're so beautiful. But I knew that it was meant for me to use and my family to use. And, it's nice. It feels because it is handmade. It also feels a little bit more luxurious than if you're just buying, your regular swab soap at Walmart.
Right.
Which I will not. I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah. And it comes from my hands. That's the other thing I always think about. Like when my family use it, my kids have never not used my soap since they were babies. And I don't know. There's something about that I think is really special. It's like they've been using something made by my hands their whole life. I'm not a cook, so it's not my food that they're getting. That's my husband.
Mine too. My husband too. I'm
Nice.
like, ooh, I can make the
Highly recommend it. I think somebody else cook.
I know. I'm just like, I can make the quick macaroni and cheese tonight, or whatever, just simple stuff. But I'm not a cook. So, do you have any upcoming projects, collections? What are you working on? What's going on in your world right now?
Yeah, I know. Well, since I just finished the world soap, I was taking a pause to figure out what is next.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to go back through and reinvigorate that, or maybe like focus on a couple of the a couple of the tarot bars are definitely favorites. Like everybody is excited about the High Priestess soap.
Of course.
And like the Empress soap is really popular. So do I focus on those and maybe evolve that some way? But I think the immediate next thing I'm going to do is like have a big giveaway, probably in May. Once the last one is fully cured and ready to go, and have like a full 22 bar collection.
Wow, how cool.
Giveaway, just because it just feels like it needs to happen because
That's so cool.
is fully complete.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was thinking of doing little tarot collections, little High Priestess, Empress moment, or little 3-bar collections to represent your sign, things like that, or gift boxes with a tarot deck. I've been sort of generating these ideas lately to decide how to make the offerings themselves feel more like you're giving yourself a gift.
Do you mostly sell your stuff through your website, or do you have any places locally that you sell your products?
Yeah, it's mostly through my website. I do have one. There's a witchy shop. I have the cutest little downtown, 6 blocks from my house. And I live in Kenton in North Portland, and there's a witchy shop in the little downtown area called Woo. Woman-owned business, lovely little storefront over there in the cutest little downtown imaginable. And so she bought some of my soaps to stock. So if you're in Portland, and check out Woo, they're there.
Love Portland. I haven't been to Portland in a long time, but it's like if the climate was a little bit different, I think maybe I would
understand.
I
would rain. It's the dark. It's so dark here.
Yeah, that's a little bit hard for me, but it's so, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's like Portland has everything that I want in a city. It's got the beautiful outdoors. It's got all the places to visit, all the coffee shops, the breweries, the bookshops, the cute little
witch shops in literally every neighborhood.
The witchy shops, all the cool neighborhoods everywhere. I mean,
we love it here.
Oh my gosh. Every time we go to Portland, I'm always just like, oh, why can't we live here? I love it here. My husband's like, oh no. I'm like, oh, I know. But it is a cool place definitely a cool place to visit. I have heard though, because we haven't been there since, I think it's been pre-COVID, but I know that with the, all the riots and stuff. How is your downtown? Is that coming back to life?
I mean, the riots were really just around the federal buildings.
Okay.
And more power to them. I think they sustained that for I think it was 78 days. But the pandemic itself shut down a lot of things. There's my husband's a musician, for example.
He is.
And gigs, disappeared overnight. So tons of musicians struggled. And that scene I know is recovering. And I think that's true in a lot of cities. We have a big housing crisis here, like many major cities. And I think that has been a struggle here, where I think people have the perception here that we have some of the highest income taxes. Is a whole other discussion, but we have high income taxes here, but we also don't have sales tax. So if you do the math, we actually pay the lowest taxes in the United States, which feels good on an individual level sometimes, I guess, for people. But we have the 4th lowest school funding in the United States, which don't get me ranting because I will. And that's an example of a lot of our funding issues. So people here want to do good, right? But the resources are not always there. They don't have funding for a lot of basic resources. The way our government works was a very old method of governance. So they couldn't, the trash was owned by 4 different branches of the government. And so they couldn't just decide to go pick up garbage. They had to everybody, anyway, it's been a mess.
Yeah.
And housing and like caring for houseless neighbors has been sort of also difficult. So people come here for refuge, but then they're not taken care of properly. And I think I don't know the solutions for this. I'm not a social worker or an expert in that area, but I've seen it, but I don't think it's that different than any other city. I'm from Houston. And even in like the worst of it, it was never as bad as Houston. Like in terms of feeling safe in my day-to-day walking around. Things closed, but things have opened back up. I think for a while it felt different and things have maybe moved and shifted. But I don't feel like it did even a couple years ago where it was like, oh, like nothing is open or where do I even go? And I think part of that was me like forgetting how to leave my house.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much of that
we all
was
experienced
and how much of it was me.
Mm-hmm. I think we all kind of went through that where we were so used to being home all the time. And now it's like, okay, well, we got to get out. We got to support these small businesses. We've got to invigorate our neighborhoods. We got to get life moving again. I mean, hopefully we won't have to go through another major pandemic. I mean, I'm certainly praying that we won't have to go through something like that again during our lifetime, because that was something. But
I mean, our schools were actually fully closed for the full year, I want to say. They were closed longer than most states. And I think that was a big part of it. There just weren't people out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, I mean, being connected to healthcare, I was like, yes, I want to protect our healthcare workers. I mean, there's consequences. Good, even if the reason for them is noble, it's still tough.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super fun, Sarah. I'm gonna wrap things up and give you your time back and your afternoon back. But I really appreciate you coming on. I know my listeners are going to love this conversation. And it's been really fun connecting with you and getting to use your products. And I'm like excited to share your products with my listeners. I hope they will get on your website and buy them up because they're beautiful. And, it's always fun connecting with other people in this kind of magical community. And, sometimes it feels, I say this all the time, like sometimes I just feel like I'm on my little island all alone here because it's hard sometimes in my particular neighborhood to connect with people, but there's always a Zoom call away or whatever. That's so
right. That was very nice chatting, and thanks so much for having me and letting me talk about myself for almost an hour.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashleigh. Bye.
Thank you so much for jumping down the rabbit hole with me. If you connected with this episode in any way, I would love it if you could share it with a friend. Also, please tag me on social media. I'm at mystical.mama.ash or at Big Crystal Energy Podcast, mostly on Instagram. It helps so much getting my episodes out there and finding more magical, kooky, and spooky friends. Sending you all Big Crystal Energy. Cheers!